Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Collegiate Rising Back to School Summit with UConnect. My name is Kevin, and today we will be talking about the successes, progress, and the challenges of the esports programs in the Northwest and Hawaii. I'm joined by some of the Trailblazers who are making an impact in the Northwest. Let's go down the line, and can you please introduce yourself and the school you work with, as well as your title? Let's start with you, Sky.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sky Kauweloa. I am the head of the UH Esports Academic Task Force and director of the program. Very happy to have I'm very happy to have you guys together with us in Hawaii and look forward to our discussion.
And Kirk.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Kirk Robles. I'm the Associate Director of Business Development for Student Affairs, and I oversee Cali Sports. And thank you for having us. I'm excited to be part of this panel.
Awesome. Trevor?
Yeah, I'm Trevor Whiton with University of Washington. I'm a senior advisor here on campus.
And James?
I'm James Hoplin. I work for Washington State University as part of the global campus and AOI as the esports coordinator, trying to bridge the gaps from all the varying interests on campus into one unit.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So let's actually start with a general overview of your esports programs. So a lot of schools nowadays are trying to start their esports space. How did you establish yours? What were some of the largest milestones for your program, and where are you guys at right now? Sky, let's start with you. Sky, I think you're muted.
Apologies about that. Sorry about that again. Our program is a program that is sort of constantly evolving and is a program that has hit a number of milestones. Number one, we are a program that has found itself in the middle of being the host of the Overwatch League for summer 2021. And so that has really sort of redefined what our program will become as we move into the fall semester of 2021. But overall, our program is a program that both has a competitive component, but it also is a program that, as we've learned through our partnership with Overwatch, really scales across a number of different sort of literacies for students to take part in. And so for us at UH Esports, we have come to understand that there is really no one way to define our program, even though we have a number of goals, but we really sort of situate ourselves as a program that sits in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And what that means is that we really foresee ourselves as being a bridge between East and West. And that is a sort of a framing that is very common to Hawaii. We understand that has been a legacy of UH itself for a very long time. But with us partnering with the Overwatch League, it has become even more of a defining feature of how we see ourselves moving forward. And again, I will probably speak to that as we continue the discussions.
Awesome. And Trevor, do you want to go next on how your program's doing?
Sure. Also, you want history as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Our program started a few years ago, based out of the student community, mainly coming from our League of Legends club, which is really big and vibrant. Putting pressure on the staff and visiting us, talking about the need for a place to play. And the need to develop an organized program because esports was this burgeoning, growing field. And we had 2 or 3 years of very strong student leadership, both from League of Legends and just from students at large within our gaming community, who really took the lead on pushing forward with both building an esports program and a vibrant gaming community full of events and programming and just day-to-day activities. I think Justin Bensuing is going to be on the panel tomorrow, and he's one of the four founding members of this whole drive to kind of elevate our esports program. The conversations and the pressure from the students, they found a sympathetic ear with myself and a couple other administrators. Right place, right time, good timing. Upper administration was looking at esports from recently hearing about it at the Pac-12 level, and it was like, "Hey, what's this esports thing?" And I was like, let's tell you about it. And we jumped into it, formulated a panel of student leaders to formulate. And the image behind me is our esports lounge. They helped develop, ideate, envision the 41 computers and desks and chairs and artwork behind us, and really were the driving factor to build a truly student-initiated and led program. We're in year 2 of the organized play. COVID did its thing. We sort of got distracted and held back by that, but we just been kind of taking this year to kind of rebuild, reformulate, and create a foundation for that when student leaders come back to campus, they can hit the ground running. But again, it's built on 3 pillars: community, career, and competition. Specifically in that order, competition is important, but not the emphasis. Community is number 1. Career and creating marketable skill sets and the pathways to success and leadership in the industry, both gaming and non-gaming, is number 2, and then number 3 is very much important, but a third level of making sure we have competitive teams that have access to all the competitions programs. So that's kind of an overview of what we do.
And that's something I can say I think Sky and I really relate to, and making sure that we support the students with their communities and making sure that they can get something past their college career and find something in the esports space. Yeah. And how about you, James? How's your program doing?
So over here at Washington State, we've kind of developed very similar to how UW has. It started off as a student push originally, with a very robust and vibrant community. And then eventually what happened is that they requested an S&A fee for an esports lounge, kind of taking the lead of what UW's doing. And that sent a message up to everybody who is listening that, hey, the students are interested. This is a focus we want to do. And we've been kind of trying to flesh out that program, see where we can help them, where we can interact with them. Right now, it is still primarily a student involvement, a student engagement type concept, as we are trying to lay the pavers down to actually true scholarship and competitive teams. But right now, we're just really setting the solid foundation to move forward.
That's awesome. And Kirk, can you share how Cal State's going?
Yeah, so it's very similar to kind of what James and Trevor said. Cal Esports really started as a student-run initiative. They were a student group, and they approached actually rec sports and athletics at the time, saying, "Hey, we're gaining a lot of momentum in these competitions. How can we garner some more support for our students?" At the time, athletics kindly just declined at the moment, as they were more kind of interested in other things. Esports hadn't really taken a hold. For us on the recreational sports side, I think we saw this as an opportunity to expand our message of wellness, right? We probably wouldn't, like the rec sports center was probably not the number 1 destination for some of these students who are gamers, right? And we saw it as an opportunity to expand the message of wellness. Like, this is something for another genre of students that we may not be able to engage with. So we took that as an opportunity to kind of, again, adopt that programming and bring it under the rec sports umbrella. From there, I think that was around 2017 that we kind of had those discussions. I think the next part was, how do we kind of launch this to the campus and really show the campus leadership that this is something the students would really want to be part of. So there's a welcome week event called Caltopia that had been going on, I think, that point for the past 15 years. We decided to insert gaming in there and create the Gaming Expo. We worked with several different partners to kind of bring that to life, where we had a exhibitor row from different companies around the area who were part of the event. We had a competitive team showcase. And also we had, I think, like a competitive team showcase, and as well as, I think, exhibitors row, and also an open play area. From there, actually making gaming part of such a large back to school event, it kind of opened a lot of eyes to a lot of students, saying, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize there's types of these gaming clubs." Sometimes we can get segmented and not realize how big the gaming community is, right? And so it was an opportunity for a lot of students to say, "Oh, wow, I play these games. How do I connect with the Cal Esports and things like that?" I think also more importantly, it showed a lot of staff and faculty and administrators who had attended the event, like, in esports is here, and we should kind of invest in the future of it. Fast forwarding a little bit, Caltopia helped launch, like I said, the kind of the interest for that, where we signed some corporate sponsorships that helped create our community gaming center that was opened in the summer of 2018. I think similar to what Trevor and James said, I think originally, like, administrators, as we kind of moved that, they're like, "Oh, wow, there's the competitive areas, like, we're really interested. That seems like the biggest part as we compete." I think as we slowly built the center and realized, and talking more and more of the students, I said that the competitive part is actually much smaller than we expect the part of the gaming community. And I think we really kind of retooled our programming to make sure that our community had a place to actually just game and connect with each other. Up until that point, a lot of the students were just gaming in apartments, dorm rooms, and things like that, and not really an organized space that they could call home. And by creating this gaming center, we were able to basically become the home for a lot of the community gaming clubs that could reserve the center again and just engage and be and show how amazing it is to connect with the gaming community. Like also Trevor and James have said, now fast forward into where we are now in COVID, we have hit some road bumps. I think it's an opportunity for us to kind of relook at the program and redesign it from the ground up and kind of, okay, things have been working well here. How do we build those programs? How do we furthermore support our community gaming, who did an amazing job over this past year, that seamlessly transitioning from an in-person to online? How do we support that? And so now it's meeting with a lot of these students to realize, okay, if we'll get this in-person thing back, how do we continue to build that online presence as well?
Gotcha. And I definitely want to touch back on the COVID issue that everyone had to go through, but I do want to stop by and talk about a trend that I heard from all of us, which was how it was student push. It was very grassroots. And I think a lot of schools are in this area right now where they're trying to get their esports program up and running and presenting it to administration. So my question to you guys is, what do you guys think stood out with your students when they were trying to create their esports program? What stood out? What was impressive? And what do you think they can take away from those experiences? Trevor, do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, it was tenacity and just bandwidth. I mean, anecdotally, I remember, I've always been a gamer. I'm gamer affiliated and gamer adjacent, so I understand some of the speak, some of the stuff. I'm not going to profess to be a super knowledgeable about specifics, but I had some gamers come in. This thing called League of Legends. How cool! I knew about it from PAX and things like that. But they're like, hey, we can't play in the libraries as much as we want. They kick us out. And also on a programming note, if we wish we had some money because we bring out resources. We bring out Travis SOL and Double Lift to campus for this meet and greet. I'm like, who the hell are these people? I have no idea. But my whole background really is in student engagement and providing resources. And that was really, it was just almost serendipitous because it was right place. I am the kind of person that I have resources that I can do at large programming. So if you come to my office and you're the chess club and you want to bring a Russian chess expert, I have money to do that. So I dipped into that pool of money and was like, hey, let's bring these guys up, see what happens. 24 hours of advertising on Reddit. We filled a 250 person classroom, line out the door. I was like, there's something here. If they can rally this, and then the other double whammy that same year, I work with we call them the Purple Caster Minions. They're our League of Legends club. I work with them as well to do a Worlds viewing party. I'm like, oh, how cute! They're gonna watch Worlds on this big screen. They told me it's 3:00 in the morning in one of our lecture halls. I'm like, okay. So I volunteered to stay up all night and make sure they didn't set the building on fire. I'm sitting here at 3:00 in the morning, and my fourth cup of coffee, watching 400 people show up, tune into the screen to watch people play League of Legends. And I think it was China that year. And so I'm 2 + 2 equals, there's something here. And so it's just really demonstrating that bandwidth, long story short, and showing your administrators that it's not just me wanting to get good at Rocket League. It's me and 20 of my friends who like to cosplay like their favorite car, and there's a club of it that does, that paints cars, and there is, I mean, it's really about showing engagement for this specific path. I mean, we can talk. I'll probably get into this conversation later, but for this specific path, people like myself, James, and the other colleagues on the panel need to hear the engagement piece. If you give us these resources, we will bring 100 friends just like us, and we will engage. Engagement is the magic word in the initial stage of esports. Show the administration that if you build, I mean, I hate to use this phrase, but if you build it, they will come. And that's really what it comes down to. And find your own World's viewing party. And everything that I've thrown resources to from a programmatic and event planning standpoint, that's my background. I understand that more than esports. Everything I've thrown at them, whether it be World's Viewing Party, whether it be Friday night game nights and LANs and Smash playing in the residence halls, or our version of the Expo, Husky X, you give these students money and they will produce a attention-grabbing, Twitch streaming, high-impact event, and you can't ignore that. And that's really what you have to show, is that you can't ignore the situation.
Awesome. James, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing was when Bobby, the club president that was around when I took over, he really did a lot of the grunt work. They put together a very powerful and a very professional pitch to get SNA student fees to be able to, renovate an old conference room into our new esports lounge. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were able to make the case that this is not just, sweaty people in a basement, that this was a valuable addition to on-campus life, that is what really kind of started to click in people's minds. And additionally, being able to show that, our gaming community is a wide cross-section of campus life in general. There are, like, for example, our campus or our club leadership is honestly primarily women or women identifying folks. And that was something that was very, very positive for some of our student engagement or our student involvement folks, being able to say that it's not just a boys club, that it is a very inclusive and safe and welcoming place for everything. So that's been something that we've been able to kind of hang our hat on and really push to try to, again, as Trevor pointed out, we will probably be saying a lot of engagement and interaction. And this has been one of the best investments of resources to get that engagement back.
Awesome. Kirk, do you want to add something to that as well?
Yeah, I would. I mean, kind of like what Trevor said, originally with the group of students who oversee the Cali Sports, they presented to my director at the time, and he actually didn't really know gaming. And I got pulled into the meeting later on, and I was they were talking about like StarCraft, and so I just started chatting with them. I was like, oh, I used to play StarCraft when I was younger. I said, is TLO still around? And kind of just chatting with them, right? And kind of showing like, oh, I kind of know about gaming. And after that meeting, my director said, so you know exactly what they're talking about? I was like, well, to some extent, yeah, I played some games. He said, okay, cool, you can help with this project. And I think that's the really important part, is to find an administrator who understands and will fight on the students' behalf. Again, I can't say I helped create the entire program. It's a very student run, but just to be able to hear and listen to students like this, we need a space to call home. We like they're being kicked out of the library. They can't bring their equipment here. I think just hearing those concerns and trying to bring that out and really meet those needs was really important to the administrator eyes, showing that this is a need for students. So I think that was an awesome opportunity. And I'm glad I was able to help, quote unquote, translate for the administrators who didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
I think also, right, I think James touched upon it. Sometimes the gaming industry is seen as very male dominated, but part of the student group that actually approached us were two female students who really kind of talked about their experience, saying, we really want to build a safe space for women gamers. I think we had to help find our niche and kind of how do we build that and make it more welcoming to build that gaming community. And so that's part of the reason. Also, part of our community side of gaming is we established the Cal Women in Gaming program. It's led each year by two presidents who are elected. Again, they create kind of a mentorship program, and we support, again, just showing how we can support our women gamers or women identifying gamers, and how to make them a more comfortable space, right? And so I think, again, I think the biggest thing is, like you said, is the listen. Sometimes administrators say they listen, but don't open their ears to things. So I think it's really important to find those specific administrators who can kind of relate to what the students are asking.
Yeah, and so I guess from what I just heard from everyone, except for Sky, but it's mainly the students are the backbones, and engagement is what they're really looking for, and making us, like for us, I would say, at UH Esports, when we created the space, we wanted to also make a place where if you didn't have a home on campus and if you're a gamer, we wanted to make a safe space for you guys to come in, be involved, and just have a group of friends and connect with people and grow and experience the things that you love together. And I think Sky and I, we worked on that. And yeah, like Sky, do you want to add on what you think is the importance of student engagement and how the students are the backbones of esports and collegiate?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's not a surprise that students are the backbone, right? I think
Of
we
course.
can sort of like, I think we're all sort of like echoing the same sort of sentiments here. I think what's important to acknowledge is that the students continue to be the backbone, because what we also see is that, and let's be honest, we have to sort of play the language game of administrators. And that language game, as Trevor and James have already kind of pointed out, is engagement. And that's sort of a requirement that we have to kind of accept. But it's a requirement that, unfortunately, grassroots communities don't necessarily identify with. Because these are KPIs that, large institutions are, aware of. And these are sort of the market determining factors for universities. And so engagement is, for a large extent of many universities, about just showing, large groups of students being interactive and being immersed and enmeshed into the community itself. And let's be honest, gamers have never had that experience before. It's only within the last roughly 6 years, since 2014, but I don't necessarily put 2014 as a before and after, but with Robert Morris University instituting the first varsity program, suddenly gamers are front and center for many smaller liberal arts universities and larger R1 universities like ourselves. And, to suddenly be at the center of attention is a very weird thing. And, we have to kind of make sure as we move forward that students continue to be the backbone, not just that we acknowledge them in the background as the backbone, because it's very easy for administrators to see what's happening and then to suddenly cannibalize the community itself, right?
Yep.
And that's a very big problem that I've seen already happen.
Yeah, if I could just step in and just kind of add on to what Sky was saying, like, I am here because I am standing on the shoulders of the students who lifted our position up to be able to do this. I would not be able to do this if it wasn't for the hard work and the passion and everything they bring to the table. My job is to be that intermediary, to be able to speak gamer to administrators and then speak administration to gamers. And so the biggest thing is we always just need to make sure that we are student forward, that we are student focused, and we don't lose sight of what got us here and what got us to the table.
Awesome. Trevor, do you want to add something to that too?
Yeah, just something that just keeps resounding. I just want to point out that we have some retention of it. Is the idea of making sure you align yourself with a staff member to be an advocate. I mean, I think it's been said by everybody, but I wanted to say it in simple terms. That should be a bullet point on your how-to guide, is find Trevor, James, or I'm losing your name, the gentleman from Kirk, sorry, or Kirk, and I'm sure Scott is the same way, who understands what a raid is in Overwatch or in World of Warcraft, who understands the basics of lanes and League of Legends, and I mean, just who can speak gamer to administrations. That seems like a simple thing, but it actually really is important. And the other point I'll make, having worked there's a cycle in my career, and if I ever write my memoirs, I'll address this. But I've worked with sort of the punk rocky sort of outsider groups on college campuses my entire life. In a lot of ways, to me, this is no different than working with the hip hop student organization 5 years ago, explaining to an administrator why we need to come up with square footage for students to have b-boy battles. Or why is it important to bring out, members of Outcast for a signing on the hub lawn? And I grew up in that whole thing as a student administrator doing Seattle music in the 90s. It's like the Outcasts and again, this is no offense. I consider myself a gamer, so I think I can speak to this, but the more punk rocky, edgy, the smash clubs and the fast talking gamers, it's really easy to be off-putting to administrators. And you do need somebody who can speak that language and act as an intermediary, because yes, I think what most of the student leaders I've met in the initial student leaders are passionate about this because they are passionate. But what tends to happen sometimes is they don't have diplomacy and BR. They don't have patience. It's like, I don't know why I need to have the room for Smash and why we have to store all these CRTs. I just need it. And that's the passion that gets you in the door to do it. But if you come at an administrator with that attitude, they're gonna be like, sorry, there's 25 policies that say you can't do that. So being able to have someone who can take that passion, tone it down, and reimagine it and be that go-to person is invaluable. And it's not really something we talk about. I'm not sure if it's obvious, and maybe it is. Maybe I'm stating the obvious, but I think if you look at the common stories, and I keep hearing the same stories every time I do one of these panels, there's always a Kirk or James or Sky in the room who says, yeah, I know they're, his lips pierced and they have pink hair, but trust me, they really know what they're doing. And that's, so I want to reiterate that.
Got it. Okay, well, that was a lot to digest, but I want to move on to our campuses and some of the big events that we've been hosting. So we've had flagship events over the past year. I do want you to highlight just some of the big events that you guys have had and what was an important part of making it a success. And I actually want to chime in really quick. I think, Sky, you're going to mention the Overwatch League and our partnership with it. But I think for us, one of the largest successes was seeing our students grow and how awesome they were throughout the event. And going back to what we talked about, it's all student run. The students are the backbone, and administration seeing that these students are growing from an event like this rather than just coming in and doing some hard labor. That's not what they want. They want to see them grow. They want to see them use their academics and how they can apply to their passion of esports. So Sky, I want you to start with, what were some of our large events and what do you think were great?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that, I'm very happy about being on the panel. Again, we're, from Hawaii, but we're part of the Northwest here. And I think one point that sort of stands out is what makes Hawaii different from everybody else. And that's a very important point to make, because there are sort of institutional affinities and patterns that all of us can point to in each of our universities and say, yeah, I recognize that. I went through that. That was an issue that we had to tackle. But at the same time, what's going to work for UW or Wazoo? Again, I have a Northwest background. I went to a small Christian college in Spokane called Whitworth. That's where I met my wife. So I, definitely have allegiances to the Northwest as well. So for Hawaii, though, what was unique about the Overwatch League partnership was precisely because we are located in the middle of the Pacific. There was really no other point to coming to Hawaii besides that. And so it was kind of funny because I think when we posted one of our videos, when we had the first tournament, I think someone on YouTube had commented, why did they go to Hawaii? What's special about Hawaii? And the very core of what was special about Hawaii was the fact that we were as close as possible to East Asia without being outside of the US. And so that kicked off the discussions with the Overwatch League back in 2020, December. And when they contacted me and said, we'd like to actually bring the Overwatch League to your campus, I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody was having a laugh. And so when I found out that it was not a joke, I told Kevin, I said, Kevin, we need to go through this, even if we fall flat on our face. We need to understand where we come short. Because the obvious problem was that Hawaii has horrible latency rates. And so, I told Kevin, I said, Kevin, does not the Overwatch League know that we have at a minimum 80 milliseconds that we have to work with just to start off a game? And so they came, we went to our iLab, we did transmission testing the first day. I told Kevin, this is not gonna work out well, but let's just do it. And, we did our first testing, it was 120 milliseconds or 124. From UH to the Tokyo servers, and we were like, yep, that's it, we're not having it. And we were able to bring it down to 90, but that was still, in my mind's eye, if you want global competition, 90 milliseconds is not ideal. But we got the green light. Overwatch was happy as long as you could keep 90 milliseconds between Honolulu and Tokyo. They said, let's move forward. And so it was at the very beginning a facilities discussion. But after we had the green light from OWL or OWL in giving us the permission to run the tournament, we started to think differently about our partnership and to say, let's not just think about this as a facilities discussion. Let's think about this as a internship, right? Let's think about this as something in which students can take part in. And OWL did not think like that. We actually had to sort of present the case to them. And of course, this was on top of COVID, which was at the time getting better, right? This is at the beginning of the summer, but now things are getting worse. And, I presented to OWL, I said, I'd like to bring roughly around 30 students into this tournament. And they kind of freaked out and said, no way. And I said, but just listen. And that part of just listening meant that I wanted to have the students take part in the actual setup, the testing, the running, the content creation, and the breaking down of this entire tournament. And it proved to be much better than we imagined it to be. I mean, many things could have gone wrong, but it proved to be an absolute benefit to the league itself. And it proved to be a huge benefit to the students who, again, we have 20 students doing an internship in which they're going to have a line on their resume saying, verifiably, I helped run OWL 2021 summer. And it has been a tremendous, tremendous partnership in which, we hope we can do again. Right now, it's, Blizzard is having some issues that's beyond sort of this topic of our discussion today. But, what we have pulled off has been quite amazing in our eyes. And we hope that we can sort of, move forward and do something like this in the future again.
And yeah, I want to just reiterate the idea of this internship. Like, where else can students get like college credit for working with the Overwatch League or something esports related? And to me, that was just great to see our administration really jump onto that and really support the students and growing. And yeah, just moving on, Kirk, I know you mentioned about your esports event earlier. Like, what was so important in making it so successful, or what was your favorite part?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, when we first launched Caltopia in 2017, I'll be honest, I've seen like what PAX West and things like that. It's like, well, how do we do that on a collegiate campus? No, working with an IT department who's like, what do you need? Like, why do you need that? And you need how much power for all these computers? Just trying to bridge that gap and really kind of explain, like, this is why we need that. I think just working with the administrators, taking a little more time to explain all those things. And I think at the end of it, it was all worth it, as again, now Caltopia has always had a gaming expo part of it. I think also once we were able to kind of show campus that, hey, we can do these gaming type expos on campus, it helps set the precedent for kind of some other things. In 2018, we actually worked with SF Shock to hold the Collegiate Cup on campus. I think that was like one of the first, that was like the NorCal portion or something like that. And I think we had like San Jose State, UC Santa Cruz, SF State, and even UC Irvine all came out for it. And that tournament, preliminary parts of the tournament all were held at our Cal Esports Center. It culminated in the finals in another location, but it was just an opportunity to show our administrators, like, this is the real deal. We have different colleges and teams who actually participate in this tournament, who traveled for this, right? I think one of the biggest things, I would say, disappointments in my that we didn't get to pull off was we were set to have the SF Shock homestand on campus right before the pandemic, literally March of that pandemic. We were set to have it on campus at our Zellerbach Center. And it was going to be a historic moment, right? First professional gaming event on campus. And unfortunately, a couple of weeks before, they pulled the plug due to COVID. But I think that had we been able to do that, and it would have been a momentous kind of event, right? But if we weren't able to do Caltopia and the Collegiate Expo, we would have never gotten to that point to where administrators are like, yeah, we could do a professional event on campus. How does this look, right?
That's awesome. And then Trevor, James, you guys want to hop in and share your major events? Let's start with you, Trevor.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be brief. I mean, Husky Expo is one of our bigger. We've done it 3 years in a row. We also had probably our best year. And again, shout out to Justin Bouncing, who'll be on the call tomorrow. It was scheduled for like March 7th of 2020 or 2019. And I think we all can do the math on that. We pulled the plug. Just didn't want to be a super spreader event, so we lost all that momentum. But we had 3 good years of that under our belt, showing that we can bring world-class players and panelists to do an expo basically, with lands and competition, etc. That's a big one. Not necessarily esports specific, but part of our community. We have two of the biggest Smash regional championships on campus yearly. Don't Park on the Grass and then Port Authority are two that we've done. That's really kind of helped with momentum of showing the vibrance of esports. Similar to Kirk, our kickoff orientation program for the fall, we have what we call the hub crawl, which is like come to the student union building, kick the tires, look around. We always feature a gaming room, and that's one of our highest traffic areas. Everything from board games to LANs to everything else. Pound for pound, you put gamers in a room, they're going to deliver when it comes to community engagement. I mean, even our D&D club has 150 members. I mean, they were kind of in shock. The year that Stranger Things opened up, it's kind of funny, actually. I remember visiting at the student activities fair, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, we have like 150 people signed up. What do we do?" Because D&D players are not the most socially and the most like big groups of people. It was kind of funny. Like, well, then you have a meeting and you start throwing out there and having fun. So it's just been, I think simply I'll wrap up quick. Put some gamers in a room, give them some resources, and anything they do is going to be well planned.
Mm-hmm. And then James?
Yeah. Unfortunately for us, our facilities just started to be built and start coming together right before the pandemic. So we haven't really had a ton of in-person gaming esports related events. We have had like WSUCon, which is a giant LAN that has been going on for almost 20 years now, 18, 19 years, that we're going to be bringing a lot more of an esports flair to. It's a 24-hour event, super popular, raises a lot of money. But there's the one thing that I was very proud of that we were able to accomplish, especially during the pandemic, is in November of last year, we have a rivalry with the University of Idaho on the football field that we play every year with our football team. That was canceled. And so working with our sports management department, actually turning it into part of the capstone requirement, two students actually organized a virtual battle of the Palouse. They dug up an old Xbox, they dug up an old copy of NCAA 14, updated the rosters. We got Paul Petrino, head coach of University of Idaho, as well as Nick Rolovich, head coach of Washington State University. Sorry about that, Sky.
Yeah, I was like, that's ours.
And we all got them in the room. We had two players play against each other. We raised money for the ALS Foundation for Steve Gleason, and it was a wild success. It opened up a lot of eyes on upper administration within athletics, and it got these students real-world practical experience running an online production, navigating the logistics of COVID. It was very, very good. The other thing is we're hoping to make this a reality, but we had the first official esports Apple Cup this last year, where we really are trying to lean in, Trevor and I, into the already built-in rivalry there. And the overall grand vision is that eventually, wherever the football game is, the esports Apple Cup will be on the different facilities, and it'll be a really big party, and it'll be a lot of fun.
And who won that this year, the inaugural one? I'm curious. I don't know.
Next question.
Next question. Okay. And so I do want to touch brief. I think a lot of us have mentioned engagement and just getting the students in there. Something I think we all need to remember is just make sure you document everything. Make sure you take pictures. Make sure you just keep note of who's coming in. Because administration, they just might ask like, hey, we want to see some things. And don't worry too much about like, oh, we need like 100,000 people or whatever the case may be. Just get people in the doors, support them, and make them feel at home. And so the next thing I want to talk about, I think we've all mentioned this, COVID played a major role within this past year. I do want to talk about what are some of the new things that we learned out of this, what are the new initiatives, and what we want to apply moving forward with everything that's happened with COVID. Sky, let's start with you.
Yeah, so, looks like we're going for round 2 now with COVID. And it's really a tragedy because there was so much hope and expectation that this fall would be different. But, lessons learned from the past, I think one thing that we have to kind of acknowledge is that, and I don't think it will ever go away, even if we do move out of the COVID situation is that we will live in a hybrid world between the shoulder-to-shoulder gaming that we all love and appreciate and that we all have or hope to have on our campuses, because I do believe at the end of the day, you can't simply continue to have Discord communities sustain 20, 30, 40,000 student populated universities as a way of community management. It's just way too hard and way too difficult. But at the same time, it looks like, yeah, we will have to continue to make sure that, these Discord communities become the second homes of our esports programs, because they really have become the arenas or the virtual arenas outside of our land-based geographies. And so for us at UH, one thing that we did learn is, for the past year, COVID has been a massive accelerant to the growth of our program. Kevin and I did not expect that. We expected something very different. But what we have learned is that numbers of university students at the University of Hawaii have come to know UH only through UH Esports and only through UH Esports' Discord. And so, mediated communications, mediated communities on Discord are proving to be incredibly important locations of where students are developing student life. And so when we talk about administrators not being aware of what we're doing, I think it's even further incumbent upon us to make sure that administrators understand that these Discord communities are incredibly important and that in some way they become part of the funding in the future of our esports programs, where we continue to fund not just the development of our spaces, our physical spaces, but that we make sure that as these Discord communities grow, that they become safe or safer at least, and that we have the right type of moderators in these communities, because moderation is going to be the key. And I think for many different universities, I think it's not to say that we don't keep an eye on these communities themselves, but when topics or fights break out in a general lounge area or a general chat area, they can cause havoc and they can raise questions about what was allowed to be said, what was not removed, how things are moderated, how things are handled. And so as we move forward with our programs, we really should take into consideration in investing more in these communities via Discord or whatever platform we have in the future. So I think for COVID, as we move forward, these will continue to be very important.
Gotcha. And Kirk, do you want to add to anything about COVID?
Yeah, like Sky said, I think it really opened it up to the administration, at least on our end, is that when a lot of quote unquote the typical student engagement stopped because of COVID, it didn't really stop for the gaming community. They are still connecting, right? And I think it was an opportunity to show, like, I was still working with our sponsorships. Hey, we're still doing events here. This is what the students are doing. This is how I'm supporting them. And it kind of really opened the eyes to our administrators, like, oh, wow, I didn't realize they're still interacting and things like that. So I think it really has shown that our administrators now, like, the online community and the in-person community, they need to be considered as one kind of big piece, right? And we, like Sky said, I think we really need to make sure that's a part of how our vision is for going forward. And I think I do also want to touch upon that part where Sky said, making sure we have the right moderators. And I think James and Trevor can attest to this, is we need to empower these students and empower them with these roles, right? Versus kind of always, administrators tend to feel err on the side of caution. Well, can a student do that? And it's like, if you train them and give them the right resources and tools, yes, they can. So I think it's really important to kind of reinforce that despite what happened this year, our students shined on the engagement platform and so it made my job easy. Is like, okay, what tools do you need? How can I support? And I think that going forward is something I really kind of want to keep building on.
Yep. And I just want to touch up upon the idea of like training students and allowing them to grow. Sky has really instilled in me that college is a time of place for growth, and it's okay to make mistakes, and these students are going to make it. And as long as they learn from it and continue to move forward and do better, by all means, go out there and continue to grow and take leadership. There's no problem with that at all. And so, yeah, James, Trevor, let's start with Trevor. Let's talk about your COVID situation, how you guys handled it.
Well, I mean, early on, it was sort of a blessing in disguise in some ways. It allowed us to slow down, and this is going to sound weird, but it allowed us to sort of pause the student voice of dynamic change, innovation, and jumping ahead. And oh my gosh, we're behind the curve. I sent a message to my colleagues in August of last summer, and I said, they asked us, what's our goal for COVID, for virtual and remote work? And I said, let's keep it simple. Let's play, stream, and tweet. And let's just focus on that. And let's not worry about underwriting and sponsorships and build outs. Let's make sure we have a consistent student voice playing and a place for them to play. And the PACU initiative was a blessing in that regard. Let's develop our social media platform, even though we have like 20 people following us on Twitter. Let's tweet like the whole entire world's listening, and let's start developing our legs. And so it gave us a year to do it's almost like not a relaunch, but it's almost like a soft launch of our actual official program. Let's tweet about it. Let's stream. Let's develop our broadcasting skills. Again, let's pretend like 25,000 people are watching, and let's just focus on the basics. And so we really ran the basics and the drills, and it gave us a chance to kind of center ourselves and build this year. So we use it as a platform to kind of give ourselves a foundation on the official level, so that when student leaders come back in force with a strong vision, we have a foundation to build on. So that's kind of what we took, and then I'll reiterate, and I'll also echo what my colleagues have said before. It definitely honed in the idea that online communities are resilient and a strong investment in the future. You can't we're changing how school is done. I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've seen more change in the last year and a half than I saw in the last 15 years of being an on-campus administrator. So we have to acknowledge that. And, we love buzzwords, but I think the idea of hybrid is really important too, that you need to have both from an accessibility standpoint and an equity standpoint, and just from a general practice standpoint. We are now in a hybrid world where you can do, I can communicate with you all and colleagues all over the state and country on this little box. And you cannot uncork that genie out of that bottle.
Yeah, and we were able to use some of the in-person downtime to really flex our muscles and provide our worth to other departments that necessarily hadn't been thinking of it. I already touched on the sports management relationship that we're building, that we can show that we can take event planning and apply it to an esports setting, but also the entire concept of being in a room and streaming online events has become very, very popular to our communications department. And so they're looking at educational avenues to bring streaming and internet production into actually academic side of things. And we were also able to take the vice president of student affairs, have her come in to our esports arena in March or April, I think it was April, and have her play Rocket League streamed online as part of a Q&A or a fireside chat, being able to introduce entire segments into our world that wouldn't necessarily be able to be seen when there's other options, or there's baseball or everything, with a spotlight really on us and really on our students. All the students, not just at WSU, but everywhere, really stepped up. And, we're something to be proud of, not just at WSU. I'm very proud of what UW has been able to do, what Hawaii's been able to do, Cal's been able to do. And what we've been able to do as the PACU has been able to really elevate everybody, no matter what level we've been able to be on.
Gotcha. I do want to squeeze in one more question before we go into Q&A. Let's make this quick. So I think our programs have been continuing to evolve, and we're moving forward. How do you see your program, or how have your goals, how has your program changed over the years, and what do you think the direction is going forward? Sky, let's start with you.
Yeah, so the direction forward, as I said before, Overwatch has become a Goliath that has landed on us. And as soon as it's done, which is, next week is our final week that we host Overwatch. We hope to have stakeholders in the island get together to have a meeting and to review what has taken place. And one of the things that I've always imagined and envisioned UH Esports as being is essentially being a platform or a discussion point to talk about esports in relation to the future of Hawaii itself. So, you know, in some states, esports is represented by industry, but in other states, esports is represented by education. And Hawaii is a state in which esports has not necessarily always been, you know, represented by education, but education and educational institutions have taken over the discussions quite heavily. And so my goal for our program is to make sure that, you know, as we move forward and diversify Hawaii's economy, because that is a goal for Hawaii, is to move away from tourism as a main component, is to say, you know, where does esports fit as a future in supporting and sustaining jobs for Hawaii's youth, and also to keep Hawaii's youth on island. Not that they can't go to Seattle or LA or Houston or Chicago, but, you know, we do want to have Hawaii as being sort of a hub among these major cities as we look at global esports developing in North America and also in East Asia, because we're right in the middle of it.
Gotcha. Kirk?
I would say goals for the program essentially now, as we're set to start students coming back to campus now, is how do we safely open, right? And how does that define, and how do we still add to the student experience, knowing that the pandemic is still very much alive? And as Sky said, this might be round 2. I personally can foresee a situation maybe we might have to kind of close down again. I don't know, right? And so how do we navigate that? I think that's kind of currently what's on my mind now. I know that our students, especially like our Overwatch team, like, hey, can we have a boot camp next week? It's like, yeah, I'm working on that. Like, how do we safely get you guys into the center first, right? And what's the capacity for that?
Gotcha. Trevor?
I mean, just keep building. You know, that's our goal. I think there are some key questions that need to be addressed and answered. What does monetization look like? What truly is the difference between engagement and recruiting? How do those two work together when you're building programs? I think those are some key questions. That the good news is it's different for every school. The bad news is it's different for every school. And so what works for Robert Morris does not work for the University of Washington. And so I don't think anybody yet still has the magic bullet. So just finding this, so really still getting to know ourselves and making sure that no matter what we do, we continue in this space in a truly unique University of Washington voice that helps uplift and build our colleagues and our community. We want to help Wazoo get better. We want to help Cal. We want to be a community builder, but also fix ourselves and make sure that we truly know who we are. And I just want to reiterate, someone said it earlier, the key to this, one of the biggest things about creating programs is understanding who you are as a campus, what your community is like, what truly makes your campus strong. Our industry and student life in general is built on this homogeneous idea that every school is the same. And we're not what works in Big Ten schools doesn't work on our campus. What works at Wazoo doesn't work on our campus, even on our programming. They can do a country band. We can do a country band. There's so much. It's just knowing yourself. So just continuing to get to know ourselves and making contextually sound decisions based on the information.
Gotcha. And James, can you make yours short? I'm so sorry.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. We're hopefully unveiling our public esports lounge on next week during Week of Welcome. So that is primarily the focus of everybody, the students, everybody working hard. But really, it's just going to be laying down more pavers, laying down more foundation, finding who are the champions, who are the investment stakeholders within the university, building up those relationships, and really taking a strong step forward to having an established and hopefully scholarship programs somewhere down the line for our competitive side.
Awesome. And so let's move on to the Q&A. So someone asked, do you think it's better to have a singular large space on campus or multiple small ones in terms of growth for a program? Let's actually start with you, Trevor.
I mean, I'll go back to, I'll kind of cheat and say, depends on your campus. You need to know yourself. I think as far as resources, general event planning 101, keep people concentrated in one space as opposed to spreading them out when you first start an event. That way your numbers look bigger and so I would say start with one space in most cases, I think.
Got it. Does anyone want to add to that?
It's a lot easier for both financially as well as space restrictions. Space is a prime commodity on college campuses. So if you can just find one suitable location that's going to fulfill 70% of your needs, start with there, and then you can diversify beyond that.
And I do want to add on what to James just said. Space is really a commodity on every college campus. I think talking to multiple programs, it seems to be the common trend of we can't find a place for our students to come and congregate. At least I know for myself, when I was pitching our esports program, I went through so many different admin just trying to get one location. And funnily enough, Sky can attest to this. As soon as COVID hit, they said, hey, look, we're not utilizing the space. You can have it now. And it's a weird blessing, but now we do have a space for our students and we just can't wait to use it. Okay, so moving on to the next question. With being located in the middle of the Pacific, logistically, how hard has it been for things such as match ping, shipping and equipment, etc.? And I think this is directed towards us, Sky. So Sky, do you want to talk about how it's like running an esports program here in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, so imagine our players really operating as if they were from sort of Colorado, in the sense that they have high altitude training as part of their everyday experience. And when they get to a campus or location in which they're playing under normal conditions, they absolutely excel. And so Hawaii has a reputation of having what we call the sixth sense. We can, because our ping is so bad, we can anticipate the future. And so in one weird sort of aspect, and this goes just to player performance, and I know that question has a wider context to it, but just to player performance, the ability for our students to be robust in their capacity to operate under different ping environments is a very good thing. Because I think as you move forward as a program, I'm just speaking about the competitive side of things. If you have a team that freaks out when you see ping above 30 or 40, I don't think that's going to be a very robust team that's going to move into the future in which you want to have. You want to train players in which they can look at a ping environment and say, okay, it's bad, but we can adjust to that. And so in just a sort of performance context, and that doesn't go just for esports, but for sports as well. You want to build out students who can adapt to their environments. And I've run into students who literally will not play unless it's under 15 milliseconds. And when I think of a program, I'm thinking we want to have students that sort of are so inflexible that, those conditions are what determines what they do. So in a very sort of weird context of Hawaii itself, there are some silver linings that we can draw out of it. And we're very happy to point out those silver linings, because we're still, even at the end of the day, we need to make sure that, we have robust broadband internet infrastructure coming to Hawaii. That's a very important state goal. But what we have now is a very good base of players who are happy to operate in different environments.
And I think I want to add a little bit to this, and I think all of you guys will agree, is to lean onto your local communities. Everyone has something unique about their campuses and in the area around them. Lean onto them, look for support, and if you can showcase how important this is for the growth of your community, I'm sure that they will come in and try to help out. And as for the ping things, I know our teams love to whine about the ping. So now that I can say the Overwatch teams have won about it, or won with like 90 ping, they can't complain anymore, Right. So going on to the next question, what are some common KPIs or key performance indicators and results that admins are looking for when asking for esports on campuses? Are students getting credits or moving past electives with these programs? And yeah, Kirk, do you want to add to this? Like, what are people looking for?
I can say specifically for our campus, right, with Cali Sports being under recreational sports, I think we wanted to show that this is another form of wellness for students, right? We're reaching another audience who might not be playing basketball at our center or playing volleyball or things like that. So that was really important for us to show that, hey, we're engaging with another part of the student base. I think the other is, again, how we can build and kind of, like we said, arm the students with these resources. So they put on a tournament, they're thinking they're putting on a tournament, but they don't realize they're building skills, organization skills that they can apply in interviews. And that's why we've also partnered with our Cal Career Center. I think it's finding, because I work in sponsorships, I'm able to kind of build all those, see all those things. And maybe the students like, oh, I want to put on a tournament. But I think as an administrator, you say, there's a lot more than just putting on a tournament. You're building connections. You can and be able to present the success of all this, right? And so I think it goes back to what I think Trevor said, is, kind of find that supporter in the administrator side to kind of really help build things and kind of shine light on something. Sometimes the students think very kind of tunnel vision, like, oh, I just want to put on a tournament. I just want somewhere that we can game, but it's a lot more. So that's what I would say.
I know that we're hitting towards the end of it, but the other thing I want to add is that we have a large percentage of our gaming community that does not interact with student involvement and student affairs anywhere else. So this is their only source of engagement and interaction and sense of oneness with the university. And that is something that has been very, very important for us here.
Gotcha. And I actually got the okay. I have one more question. And the question is, I think Kirk covered this earlier, but what are your thoughts on turning the focus of the program from esports to gaming? It seems like it would be helpful for communities, community building on campuses. So Trevor, do you want to talk about this and your thoughts on if they should shift away from just purely esports into just gaming overall?
I mean, I think it's a yes and conversation. I think you start with gaming and lead to esports. I think that in any gaming community that I've ever been a part of, you have to have a common enemy or a common conflict to drive the bus. It's like gaming and community only get you so far. You definitely need to have a ladder to climb, a tier structure, single elimination. So I think it's a yes and conversation, frankly. Start with gaming and lead to esports. We built our program on a pyramid model where esports is the tip of the pyramid, the 1%. But all roads lead to gaming, to esports and competition, but it's built on a foundation of gamers. So you can't develop a $250,000 budget just for 10 people who play League of Legends. You have to build it for everybody. So it's a yes and conversation. I don't think they're mutually exclusive at all.
Yeah, and just to attest to that, I think it's this idea of there are players and you want to have the student community support them. You want to make sure that you can create internships or careers and help them set their future and so on. And it's just making sure that, like you mentioned with this whole pyramid idea, supporting all the gamers and esports people on campus and never leaving anyone behind. Okay, and I think that's all I have. So thank you guys so much for talking with us. And I hope people were able to learn and just gain a little bit of insight from what we're doing here in the Northwest and Pacific. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thanks. Be well.